Mom, you gotta throw the towel in. That's my brother. That's your son. You gotta throw the towel in. You threw the towel in. I tricked you all. God, Owen Hart was such a fucking treasure. He should have been a multi-time WWF champion, but oh no, they couldn't figure out what to do with him until Vince McMahon had to resent the tone of a reporter because he didn't want to pay a cable company properly. Owen Hart should have had a hell of a goddamn career, and thanks to Vince McMahon, this was about the height of his career. Nevertheless, I'm John Rentham with the Retro Review of WWE Survivor Series 1994 from the Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio, Texas. Let me know your thoughts on this show in the comments, please. After reviewing the 1993 event, I decided, why the fuck not? Okay, I'm going to say right now that WWF's pay-per-views, they were in a state of flux. There were some good moments, don't get me wrong, but this one, if you thought the 1993 event was a bit of a mess, this one was really not good in hindsight. There were a couple decent feuds going, and the elimination matches had a couple things that would go on to play out at the Rumble and at WrestleMania, but Jesus, tap dancing fucking Christ. So, according to WrestleNomics, by the way, shout out to WrestleNomics for having all these facts and figures and everything. And no, Hulk, I said figures. God damn it, Hulk. Hulk was in WCW. It was about to have Brutus fucking Beefcake in the main event of Starrcade. Yeah. So maybe WCW wasn't exactly turning the fucking corner. Maybe they were, like turning the corner like Dale Earnhardt Sr. turned the corner and turned right into the fucking wall. Nevertheless, that's the wall, brother. So, okay, 169K, nice, buy rates, and that's down for 1993's 180K, which is apparently encompassing worldwide buys as well. And unfortunately, 1995, even though the 95 event had its moments, and it did have Diesel versus Brett, and the elimination matches at least had a little bit of decent stuff, this just went, pretty much the first match was it. Yeah, there was spectacle. Yeah, there was some good stuff. But for any of the positives, there were so many negatives that dragged this show down. So the dark match, by the way, was Bob Holly against Quang. Quang was Savio Vega. At that point, Savio Vega under a mask and having to do martial arts was a good idea. So the pre-taped, promos or, little bits of footage, guerrilla warfare footage, of Shawn Michaels' team, Razor's team, the midgets. Don't worry, I'll get to the fucking midgets here soon. The bad guys. Razor, Bulldog, 1-2-3 Kid, Fatu, and Sione. Why did they name the Barbarian Sione? We knew it was a Barbarian. The Barbarian had just been on WWF television in like 1992 and had been doing so we knew it was the fucking Barbarian. Even at 13 years old, almost to be 14, I was like, why'd they name him Sione? I don't get it. I know they had to make it like, the head shrinkers and stuff like that. Let's make him a head shrinker. Just say Fatu and the Barbarian. It would still work. Anyway, so they took on the Teamsters. Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Jeff Jarrett, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who had just come back recently as just around SummerSlam, I think, to be involved in the cage match between Bret and Owen. Speaking of which, Owen Hart, the fifth man of the Teamsters. And we would see various members of this, of this particular match later on. Like Bulldog, Owen, and Jeff Jarrett. Boy, will we see Jeff Jarrett later. So anyway, Gorilla Monsoon and Vince McMahon dressed up as cowboys. I don't know why that made me laugh, but it did. I will say the crowd is very up, and San Antonio has a rich history when it comes to professional wrestling, despite the fact Joe Blanchard was a terrible businessman. God, was he ever. Read up about Southwest Championship Wrestling, and you'll see what I fucking mean. So, again, why they call the Barbarian Sione, I don't fucking get it. This went about 21 minutes, 22 minutes, and had some good action, don't get me wrong. All these guys had been, commingling to an extent. Jeff Jarrett, about to be involved with Razor Ramon for the Intercontinental Championship. Razor and Diesel had competed over the Intercontinental Championship, where Diesel had beaten Razor right after Razor beat Shawn Michaels at Mania 10. I think it was on an episode of Superstars right after Mania 10. And then Razor, who was already the Intercontinental Champion, had been since like late October, so he held it for about almost 6 months, won it back from Diesel after an inadvertent miscue between Shawn and Diesel, and that would come into play later on. Bulldog had just come back to the promotion. 1-2-3 Kid had a stellar fucking match against Bret Hart, one of the best TV matches I've ever fucking seen, at least on WWE television, because it didn't go so long that you got tired of it, but it went on more than long enough for you to appreciate what 1-2-3 Kid did and what Bret was able to get out of 1-2-3 Kid. Kid was there for everything. Great stuff. I believe that was the July 11th, 1994 edition of Raw. And no eliminations happened for about 2/3 of this match. Jarrett's still going today. In the ring is nuts to me. I don't know why. Crowd pop for Bulldog versus Owen. And then by this time next year, Bulldog will be gaining the mix against Bret at In Your House, December of 1995. I don't remember the name of that one. That would be involved in a championship feud with Shawn Michaels into the early summer. And then would team up with Owen and win the tag team championships a little bit later in 96. Hold them until June or July. I think June of 97, if I remember right. June or July. But they popped for them both here. And when Bulldog was motivated, he was tremendous. Owen, tremendous athlete. Still should really be here today. Should be retired and with his fucking family. And I know that probably sounds like I'm knocking his family. I'm not. His family should not have had to deal with that stuff. Shawn and Diesel, they didn't tag in for a while. And Diesel would actually end up cleaning house much like he did in the Rumble earlier in the year. He would eliminate Fatu. He would eliminate 1-2-3 Kid. He would eliminate Sione. Sione Barbarian. Barcione. Barcione sounds like some kind of weird grease drink. But anyway, nevertheless, eliminates them all with a jackknife within a minute to 90 seconds. And then a big boot. Gets Bulldog counted out. That's after Jarrett attacks him. Somehow that's not a DQ. But whatever. You know, people that are still involved in the match attacking others and everything. Like, you're not in the corner. It should be whatever. Doesn't matter. Rules sometimes get enforced. Sometimes they don't. Bulldog gets counted out. So really it's just down to Razor. So Razor's like, ha 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 ha. Boy, I'm fucked. And then we get a miscue between Diesel and Shawn when Diesel's holding Razor up, and then a super kick inadvertently hits Diesel. And then Diesel gets pissed, and then basically everybody tries to stop Diesel from killing Shawn Michaels, and Razor Ramon wins by a countout. So yeah, that was it was a good finish as far as pushing the whole idea of Diesel being fed up with Shawn, getting them separated from each other because you got to keep them separated. Hey. And then Diesel would win the championship just a few days after this in Madison Square Garden. Yeah, Razor's the sole survivor. Shawn calls Diesel an ungrateful leech. Funny how Shawn would end up calling somebody that when Shawn leached money off of Vince for about 3 or so years after this. Well, not until the end of suffering his career-ending back injury, but never. I've talked about that in other things. So we get to the Royal Family. Jerry Lawler, Queasy, Sleazy, Cheesy against Clowns Are Us, Doink, Dink, Wink, and Pink. You thought I hated the Doinks against Bam Bam and his band of merry, eating misfits in the 1993 show. Look, I don't mind injecting comedy, and there are some really good midget wrestlers. There have been some throughout history. Lord Littlebrook, and others. I mean, there are others, but it's all jumbled in my goddamn head. Various great, midget wrestlers. And there's nothing wrong with doing comedy. The thing is, Vince just saw them vertically challenged people. It's funny. Ha, ha, ha. And this is stupid. This was really, really fucking stupid. This was absolutely putrid. Now, the crowd was popping for some of it. The crowd was also a little bit silent because they were popping for a lot of the comedy and a lot of stuff the year before. By this point, we had the steroid trial. That was about over by this point. I think that was over sometime in the summer or the early fall. That was out of the way. And Doink got eliminated by Jerry Lawler, and then we just got more comedy with the midgets eliminating, or the midget kings eliminating the midget clowns, with Lawler cheating and everything. And then Lawler's team has a clean sweep. And then he's like, so the midgets, why are you celebrating? I'm the one that won. I'm the one that won. Burger King chants. And then all the midgets chase him around. Because funny. Wasn't it funny? Vince McMahon deserved to lose $6 million for this match alone. And that was in 95. But then, yeah, Lawler gets chased by everybody, and then Doink comes out and hits him with a pie. What flavor? Pie flavor. Yeah. Yeah, it was at this point where I was like, oh yeah, revisiting it. I hated this when I was 13. Like, I hated this. And I'm not saying WCW wasn't doing a bunch of comedic stuff. I was able to see syndication of ECW on occasion. And ECW wasn't nearly what it was, or what it would end up being by the time they got, to like 95, 96. But nevertheless, all this bullshit. We then see footage from the Tokyo Egg Dome. The Egg Dome. Bull Nakano beating Alundra Blaze for the Women's Championship. Then Todd Pettengill tries to speak slowly to get answers out of Bull, and I don't understand why they do that. Because Bull, I'm sure probably didn't have a huge grasp of English, but probably understood, but probably preferred to just, be a great heel. And Bull Nakano, by the way, take a look at Bull Nakano now. She's apparently ageless. She looks great. So, they made Todd look stupid here. And Todd's not an idiot. Todd was just a great personality. He wasn't a wrestling fan, but he at least had exuberance. That's the one thing I will admit about Todd Pettengill. Whether he was knowledgeable about wrestling when he came in or not, at least he had enthusiasm. So, entrances for Backlund and Brett to a pop. We are 57 minutes into the program at this point, I believe, when Backlund's entrance starts. And about 45 minutes later, we get to the end of all this. Brett with the Bulldog in his corner against Backlund with Owen in his corner. It's a submission match. The only way to win is to throw in the towel. It's for the WWF Championship. And it's fitting because Backlund lost the championship almost 11 years ago on this day. I think it was like just a month prior of being 11 years old, or 11 years ago, when Arl Scollin threw the towel in. When the Iron Sheik had Backlund in the camel clutch, he broke his back. He made him humble. And Stu and Helen were at ringside. And at one point, commentary said, Stu and Helen looking concerned. Me, how can you tell? And I love Brett. And Stu and Helen were older than dirt at that point. But, good guy. I mean, it was great drama. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to say right now, though, that Backlund was Brett's worst opponent. And Brett couldn't get anything good out of Backlund. Backlund couldn't get anything good out of Brett. It was a clash of styles. And I love Brett. Brett's my favorite wrestler of all time for a goddamn reason. But there is a big reason why no Brett versus Backlund match outside of the one they had on Superstars, where it was shortly after, I want to say it was shortly after the 1-2-3 Kid match. I think it was the end of July 94. July 30th, 94 seems to be sticking out in my head, or at least around that. But Backlund and Brett had a great match, and Backlund lost and felt that he would never get a chance at again, and snapped. And Backlund finally turning heel like Vince McMahon wanted him to about 10 years prior, and Backlund wouldn't do it because he didn't want his kids to see him as a heel. Something like that, and I respect that. Backlund actually went on to do some great shit in the AWA. In Japan, UWFI, I believe, I want to say, or one of the promotions that wasn't New Japan. But Backlund did a lot of great shit. The narrative that he just went away, that WWE tried to paint, was fucking bullshit. Now, granted, at the time, unless you were collecting the magazines, collecting tapes, you didn't really know that, unless you were able to see AWA programming, and even he wasn't in the AWA all that long. But Backlund, fucking tremendous. And he was in his mid-40s by this point. I think he was 44. Because he came back at the 93 Rumble. And I think he was 40. I'm trying to remember. The whole point is Backlund being a heel, snapping there, and going on when he would, just be talking about, morality and wheel morality, turn, tell us the lessons that we should learn. him just sinking his, claws, locking on the chicken wing onto people, and snapping. This was great stuff. Heel Bob Backlund, Mr. Backlund absolutely got it. And Bob Backlund, very underappreciated, in my personal opinion. The thing about this match that worked was the idea of submission-based wrestling, because Backlund's great submission-based wrestling. Focus on the arm, lock on the crossface chicken wing. Brett, great at focusing on the legs and the back, setting up for a figure four, sharpshooter, whatever. And that was fine. The thing is, this match had a runtime of about 35 minutes. Had they cut this thing down to about 20 and then done a few minutes of the aftermath to lead to the finish, that would have been fine. Had they shaved 10 minutes off of this, I don't think this match would have been nearly as not well received. And I could tell that the crowd was into it as far as wanting to see Brett win, but they were also getting a little bit tired, like, okay, nothing's really happening. Owen won't throw in the towel, even though Backlund's getting beat up at one point. Owen just absolutely just a fucking treasure here. Owen was pretty much the highlight of this whole thing. And Backlund goes for the chicken wing again. And then he finally locks on the chicken wing, and I'm not even kidding here. Between the time he locks on the chicken wing finally, Owen freaking out, crying and everything, and just doing great acting, great stuff. To the time that Helen and Stu are arguing and Helen throws the towel in is nearly 10 minutes. A submission for 10 minutes. Brett should have been legally in a coma for 3 years because of that, or at least 3 months. But, like, Mom, they're throwing the towel. That's my brother. That's your son. What are you doing? And Owen was great here. But my God, this went forever. For fucking ever. And then Owen was all celebrating. Backlund was celebrating. The crowd was booing. And some of them were silent. Like, what the fuck's going on? Why is Backlund beating Brett? And yes, it made sense that Owen screwed over Backlund. I'm not complaining about that. It led to Brett attacking Owen during the 95 Rumble match. And Backlund after both. And I think Shawn and a couple others interfered in Brett versus Diesel's rematch because they hadn't faced off yet, at least on television, after Diesel had beaten Backlund a few days after this event in Madison Square Garden. Brett and Diesel had a pretty good match at the 95 Rumble, and then they did double disqualification, or no contest, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Brett attacked Owen and Backlund. Brett would then face Owen on a Raw in February of 95 and beat him. And they extended the feud. There's nothing wrong with that. But this could have instantly been better had it been cut in half. They probably should have just done about a 15-minute match. And then done maybe 5 minutes of this submission drama. Brett trying to fight out but unable to fight out. And it would have been fine. Also, Bulldog braining himself or attempting to brain himself on the steps was really funny. Hurl yourself stupidly at the steps. Good tactic there, Bulldog. So, yeah, that was dog shit. I mean, I'm sorry, and I love Brett. And the title, it worked out for Diesel in the end, and worked out for Brett as far as winning the title back and chopping down Diesel and having an interesting 95. He faced Backlund in an I Quit match because this was such a ripped snorter. Let's do that. And Piper, what do you say? At Mania 11, that was terrible. So yeah, let's stop dumping on this. I did like how Stu had, and he was old. Stu had no idea where the fuck he was. Anyway, so I did like how Backlund was celebrating. Owen then was all jubilant, all happy. I screwed you over. Now I'm the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. God, Owen was so good. I miss Owen. I wish Owen was still here. Look how we get to the $1 million team of Bam Bam, King Kong Bundy, you big fat piece of shit. We bring in guys to get you over, and what do? You dumb yourself right out of position. That Ernie Ladd quote will always stick in my head. There used to be a clip of that on YouTube, and I'm trying to find it again. Anyway, so Tatanka, who had recently turned heel, because why not? And the Heavenly Bodies. Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey and Dr. Tom Pritchard against Guts and Glory. Lex Luger, Adam Bomb, the Smoking Guns, and Mabel. Okay, this wasn't good. Luger and Tatanka still having their feud going. That's fine. Bam Bam, at least it seemed like they were going to utilize Bam Bam after all that bullshit at last year's Survivor Series. Or the Survivor Series previously. Mabel ends up hitting a second rope splash on Dr. Tom Pritchard, which I'm sure Dr. Tom was absolutely not thrilled to take. I mean, who would want to take anything from a human waterbed? Again, I'm sure that Mabel was nice. I'm sure he was very nice. Whoop, there it is, and whoop, he injured another talent. So yeah, Mabel ended up hitting a second rope splash. And Mabel then got counted out after taking a spill outside and seemingly falling asleep. And then a moonsault pins Adam Bomb pretty soon after. And Jimmy Del Rey gets taken out. Didn't Jimmy Del Rey die a few years ago? Or was it a number of years ago? I mean, terrible anyway. But I could have swore I saw that he died years ago. So anyway, of course, San Antonio cheered for the two Cowboys taking out the Indian. I'm sorry. One person in San Antonio is going to be absolutely pissed that I said that. But, you know, just Cowboys and Indians, and Tatanka got taken out. Except he was still there because they only were able to damage him. He's only mostly damaged. And then the Guns got taken out. Lex eventually eliminated Tatanka. But then King Kong Bundy immediately hit a splash. 1, 2, 3. So Bundy and Bam Bam are the sole survivors. And then the heels beat down and the faces run back out, seeming like, shit, we can't shower, and let's have Mabel run out there. Oh, that would have been hilarious. And Backlund yells and yells, but is also calm, like he's calmer first and gets all enthused. I never lost the title, because technically, if you think about it, throwing in the towel, Backlund never actually gave up. So there you go. Backlund is the longest reigning champion. Screw Bruno's 7.5-year title reign. No, Backlund lost the title. He had it for almost 6 years. And then morality and such and stuff like that. And then we get to Chuck Norris coming out to be the enforcer for this casket match, because the first casket match between Taker and Yokozuna was so good, it wasn't, that let's do it again, but with less run-ins. Kinda? Yokozuna makes his entrance being the size of a small planet by this point, and I love Yoko, don't get me wrong. Very talented and athletic big man. I wish he'd been able to keep his weight under control. If he had been just 400 pounds, he could have been like Rikishi and had he would have had a longer life, if nothing more. I mean, he was like 34 when he passed away. 35. Anyway, Taker makes his entrance to a big old pop, and that takes about 20 years off of everybody's life. Undertaker with Paul Bearer versus Yokozuna with Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji. Chuck Norris is as the enforcer, and Yoko was so massive he couldn't move. Taker did hit a nice diving clothesline. Cornette had taken a bump just before that. And then Bundy, Bam Bam, they come out to distract. IRS and attacks Undertaker, which leads to IRS versus Undertaker, I believe, at the Royal Rumble 95. And then Taker manages to win right after Chuck Norris roundhouse kicked, sort of, Jeff Jarrett. I mean, he roundhouse kicked him in the sense that his jeans were so constricting, or he just didn't feel like putting in the effort. And Jarrett took a hell of a bump, I'll say that. But yeah, Taker won, and Yokozuna was sent out to Duke. I believe he was sent out to Duke, actually, at this point, because he came back as a surprise partner of Owen Hart at Mania 11 and was bigger. It's a real shame that even if he hadn't lost any weight except the fluids, the diuretics had just taken stuff off, he still would have been better. They could have removed some skin. He probably would have lost about 150 pounds. It's a real shame. I mean, I'm not fat shaming. It's just a real shame that Yokozuna was unable to control his weight. So yeah, this is what I gotta say though. This is for the midget match. For the goddamn midget match. That's all I gotta say. Anyway, so agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.